Welcome back to the show, everyone. We are going to de-risk your retirement and remind Jerry Schlutzwitz what he's here to talk about.
Yeah,
Hi,
thanks
Jerry.
for having me. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's
You're
really
going to be talking
important.
about reducing uncertainty, increasing control, and protect what you've built.
Right. You know, a lot of people feel like they're, today's world and economy and the markets and all that.
Everything's crazy.
That they're like flying through turbulence on an airplane. Yes. And the number one thought that goes through people's mind is, I hope the pilot has a plan on something to do to get us through this.
Wow.
And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how people need to take control in this turbulent world that we live in.
Right, yeah, I know, because a lot of people just sort of hand it over, right, to somebody else to take control of their hard-earned finances.
Well, sometimes that's the best thing. I mean, like, you got to have the time, the temperament, and the talent to do this. If you don't, it's awfully tough, but is that person a good pilot or,
Right.
not? That's what's really important.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of knots, so
There
you got to be really careful and manage your downside risk, right? So what does it mean to de-risk your retirement?
Well,
Broad brush.
basically, Bree, too many people spend too much time trying to grow their money in the traditional sense of growth. They got here through having a 401k or a 403b or IRAs, and they got used to in their 30s, 40s, 50s, putting money in and putting money in and putting money in. And it really, a lot of people here in the village have been very successful, and they have a lot of money, many of them, not everybody. And so they said, that's the plan that got me there. And so I'm going to just now start drawing out what could be wrong with that. Well, it's a real big problem, because mentally it's a huge shift when you go from earning years to retirement years where you're drawing things off. The strategy needs to change from growth to safety and income. And a lot of people just never make that change. And we've had a great run in the stock market the last 18 years, from 2009 at the end of that financial crisis, even though it kind of went for a few more years. The market bottomed in 2009. We've had an 18-year run, which is historically long. And people have kind of, baffled themselves thinking they're brilliant. Really, it's been a bull market. And if that ever washes off, they've got too much growth and not enough safety and income. They need to de-risk by putting guardrails in there, using no-risk investments, and stop being emotional about the market.
That hit, right? Avoid emotional decisions.
Yeah.
Because it's so easily done.
It
Right?
is.
You're easily swayed. Right?
People right now, they're very emotional because, we're such a divided country. We've got a problem going on in the Middle East, and, the gas prices are one thing everyone sees every single day and goes, oh my God, what am I going to do? Yeah, they have no plan. That's really what it comes down to, is no plan.
Well, and it's hard to plan for unseen, right?
I'll disagree with you a little bit there. It's hard to plan for unseen, therefore you should plan for it.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You really do need to plan for the unseen. You've got to really set some basis in there.
So can you do that by helping us to build a reliable foundation?
Right. Well, that's what it comes down to. Is go from risk investments, which I see all the time. I look at portfolios almost every day from people here in the village, and many people, they have too much money in the stock market. Now, some people have none, and they're too conservative. You could be, it's kind of having this balance. And I like to think of it as having a solid foundation like a house. You want to have your needs met. How much do you need every month? What do you have coming in? Well, Social Security. Some people, if you work for the government or some companies back in the day, you might have a pension. But a lot of people, more and more, you and I probably don't have pensions. I know I don't. And so you've got to come up with, how much do I need and where am I getting the money from? Now, if you've got rental income and business income and maybe some property in Iowa, this farmland that's paying you money, well, that's all great, but does it meet your expenses? Once you figure out a safe income plan with things that play reliable income, now you've got the foundation built. Then you go for growth. But to get to retirement, it's all growth. Grow your money for retirement. So there's got to be this switch from the floor being growth to the ceiling being growth, or the roof being growth, if you have enough money for that. So you've got to reduce the market pressure, and by having that income needs met.
Right. And you're talking about giving us, or giving money a purpose. Explain that.
Well, that's exactly it, Bree, is that too many people look at all their money and say, well, I've got this much money, and I'm going to draw my income from my money. and they don't say, well, why don't we divide your money and give it different jobs to different money? So some of it you need for liquidity. You need it just, just for spending money. And that's where your Social Security goes in and any pensions. That's your bank. It's liquid money. You should have about a year's worth of savings in there of what your expenses are. So if you spend $5,000 a month, if that's what you need over Social Security, you need 60 grand in there. And that's in case there's emergency. But now you have an income bucket that's safe and creates the rest of the income you need. And then you take some of the money and you put it out there for growth, for the replacement in case gas prices go up. Going to your earlier point, no one can plan for it. Yes, you can. You put money aside today that is going to cover those higher costs in the future. And so we use it either buckets or bags of money, different types of strategies that we use. But we divide the money up and give it different purposes. Too many people just have, well, I'll just take it from that money. And I'm going to tell you that's a dangerous way to go.
Now, Jerry, this could really get convoluted if all of these were in one account. Are you recommending that people have 3 separate accounts so that sort of almost sight unseen, right?
Bree, you probably know this by knowing me as well as I am. I'm a little nerdy. I'm an engineer by degree. Different buckets, different accounts that serve different purposes. Back in the day, I used to have a vacation account. I love traveling. We talk about that all the time. So to make sure I did, I had to put money away in a separate account. But that's how it is. You have your income bucket, you have your replacement bucket, and obviously I mentioned that the liquid bucket is your bank. So you have a bank account. So there's your 3 different accounts.
And so what happens if somebody has an unforeseen expense and they might be more liquid in one account, let's say the long-term replacement account, and they think, well, I would really love to pay that bill and just sort of get it off my desk, right? Would you recommend them taking it out of the long-term, or would you recommend them just maybe paying it gradually, paying it off slowly? If somebody's in a
great question
conundrum like that.
It's a great question. And there's 2 big mistakes I see that people make. One is misunderstanding risk in the markets. They just, we've had an 18-year bull market, it's always going to come back. Well, it may take years to come back, like it did between 2000 and 2014, or 1929 to 1949, or 1966 to 1982. There was no growth in the market for these 14 to 20-year stretches. So where do you take money from to pay for expenses? You have access to all your money. That's one thing that's very true, to get money from all different sources. Where you draw it from, the second biggest mistake, comes down to where sometimes people draw from the wrong account. So where could you draw it from? You could draw it from the long-term bucket. Is that the best way to go? I hate to say it, but it depends on the situation. But that's something that I'm an expert on, that I advise people where to draw money from. They ask me these questions, and I can help them say, well, draw it from here for these reasons. See, some people, they're not 73 yet. They haven't taken a required minimum distribution. They might be better off drawing it from their IRA, but that's not a one-hat-fits-all, even though they're like 65. Other people, I might tell them to take it out of their bank. Others, it might be out of their IRA. So it just depends on the situation. But we're looking at taxes, we're looking at liquidity, and we're looking at what's the best plan. I'm always one about the older you get is to have less and less risk. So I usually recommend taking it from the most risky portion of your money to keep the conservative kind of guaranteed portions intact, the foundation that we were talking about.
Yeah, and that all gets really confusing too. So it's great to have somebody like yourself strategize, because as your next slide says, don't treat all money the same, which is exactly what we were just talking about.
Right. A lot of people just guess, and they don't have a plan, they don't have structure, they're guessing. And that's just not a good way to go through life. It just isn't. You've got to, kind of like that pilot, you've got to know where you're going, and you've got to know how to get there in case something like turbulence comes along, today's world. And, having that plan, having someone that can help you, that's an expert, is what people really need in these type of environments. But too many people just go, well, gosh, I'm not going to do anything about it. That's why bankruptcy is 100,000 seniors going bankrupt a year. That's 12% of all bankruptcies, up from 2% of all bankruptcies just 30 years ago. It's going higher and higher and higher because people are guessing and don't have a plan, and they do this versus sitting down with an expert and saying, hey, look, can you help me?
Pray and hope, right?
That's
well,
not a good
you
plan.
can help you have a financial forum.
Coming
right?
up, yeah,
Tell
Thursday.
us about that.
Yeah, it's Thursday. We're going to meet at Clubhouse 7 from 3 to 5 p.m. It's open to everybody. Anyone can show up. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to participate. If you want to, great. If you want to ask questions, great. You can ask questions of other people in there because there's a lot of savvy people that come to these things. We usually get 50 plus people. We have coffee, cookies, and you know it's at Clubhouse 7, like I said, 3 to 5 on Thursday.
Jerry, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Bree, for having me.
I always get a little bit of an education from you. Coming up next, we've got the Democratic Club. Stay with me.